All right, so what we have here is we have an X5, and we're going to talk about a situation with this vehicle. It's a little awkward, but it's a normal situation to be in. So this vehicle here has some issues with it. It came in, it was running rough, and actually didn't even start. Once we got it started by unplugging the mass airflow sensor, that told us we had definitely a mass airflow problem. It was a biased mass airflow sensor. So when we replaced the mass airflow sensor, the vehicle actually started and running, and it actually ran. And what we ended up doing is we ended up replacing 3 of the ignition coils. You see these 3 coils right here? They're misfiring terribly on this bank right here. So what ended up happening is we put 3 plugs and 3 coils in. Actually started running substantially better, like almost perfect. But after about 15-20 minutes of running, they would start misfiring again, and then the vehicle would die out. Why is that happening? Well, if you know this series of engine, I think this is 09, so I think this is called an N52. I hope I'm correct. I know 1,000 people will try to correct me in the comment section, but anyway, it's an N52. What ends up happening when you have 3 cylinders misfiring? So mind you, there's 2 catalytic converters on this. There's one for the front bank and there's one for the rear bank. The rear bank is running fine. We didn't replace any of them. The front bank, the plugs were all fouled out. The ignition coils they smelt burnt. So we replaced the ignition coils and the 3 plugs, and started the vehicle up. After 15-20 minutes of running, all of a sudden it would die out. Came down here, took the oxygen sensor out of that hole right there. That hole right there. Below that hole, that big rusted looking body underneath it is a catalytic converter. And you see how it's got like a brown and silver and gray and everything else? It's discolored pretty good. And you can tell this manifold up here where the ports go into the cylinder head, they're discolored as well pretty good. From the misfiring on these front 3 coils and that catalytic converter, the back bank has a separate catalytic converter. There's 2 right here. Both of them have upstream O2 sensors and downstream O2 sensors. But from this bank here, misfiring so long and putting raw fuel and probably lean and rich for a long period of time, it's damaged that catalytic converter down there. Now, when you get to 15-20 minutes, you got to have that oxygen sensor pulled out of there, because if that oxygen sensor is in there, the honeycomb inside the catalytic converter swells so much, it actually cuts off almost all airflow trying to leave the exhaust system on that side, and then the engine dies out. So there, it started up. It's running now. You can see, is it gonna tell me? Okay. Come back out here and show you. See the spark plug? I put the spark plug back in the hole. Let's take that out of there. Oh, it's extremely hot already. You can tell there's something wrong with this catalytic converter on this side from all the misfiring that was going on. It's bad. Trying to take it out of there without burning myself. Okay. See how we kind of got it push it up right in here. You see how it's back out of that hole? Now let's go in there and start it back up. Runs like brand new. It don't sit there and stumble. It don't do. It just runs. Listen to that throttle response. Way faster. It's because that catalytic converter is no good. It's plugged up and it's not letting the exhaust get out, and it's all melted inside. And now it can actually breathe. That catalytic converter has got to be replaced. It's like $1,400 for a MagnaFlow catalytic converter, $1,450. It's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours to strip everything down, clean it up, and install it. Look how nice it sits there in idles. Just perfect. No more bouncing around, no more nothing. Because it can actually breathe now. Okay, look. Here is... Okay, so this is the way the catalytic converters look. If you look here, there's the front three that I showed you outside, and then there's the back three. The back three are functioning fine. This one, we don't need to touch anything back here. There's 2 catalytic converters. The front one, where they were misfiring 1, 2, and 3, this catalytic converter inside here looks like a honeycomb, and it all melted together. The air cannot pass through there anymore to get out of the exhaust system. So if you can't pass air out the exhaust system, which is the exhaust, the byproduct of the combustion process inside the engine when it makes the spark and ignites the gas and everything, the after garbage that's left over gets pushed out the exhaust. Well, that exhaust cannot make it past this honeycomb right here because it's all melted. It's like a solid brick inside there almost, with little cracks where some air can get in on cold start, but once it warms up, it expands and shuts even those cracks closed. So when we open this hole up right here, the exhaust is not going out there anymore. It's pumping out that hole. So it's able to actually push air out and suck air in from the air filter. This is plugged. This is no good. This whole pipe right here, this piece and this here is all going to have to be replaced. Now they make these stupid cheap kits that say, oh yeah, 5-year warranty and all this other stuff. But what ends up happening is if one of these fail, see this is $319 for both catalytic converters. They're not going to sell a catalytic converter that side that's worth a shit for $319. This is a cheap catalytic converter that you're lucky if you make it 6 months to a year before it starts to fail again. You're not selling 2 full-size cats for $319. Not at today's price of precious metals that are inside here, which is like rhodium and iridium or platinum and precious metals that go for tons of money are not getting sold for $319. You're getting a crap product at that price. Now, what an authentic converter looks like, let's look at one from BMW. We go down here, yeah, see, your price. RP exhaust pipe catalytic converter, $1,153.27. The original MSRP, $1,617.94. And you still have to buy your studs, your nuts, and your gaskets separately. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through MagnaFlow. They're going to send me the studs, the gasket, the nuts, everything that I need for that. And it's like $1,450 for everything total as a package deal. I like the MagnaFlow one better because it fits just like the OE does and it looks identical to it. I wouldn't be surprised if MagnaFlow doesn't make it for them. I don't know that for sure and I cannot confirm that. But I like the MagnaFlow brand. And that's the ones I like to use instead of the cheap ones. And see, here's the other catalytic converter for a 1.4 liter engine, $1,137.11. And that's BMW Ziegler of Orland Park. And then you can find other stuff like on Parts Geek, $348 for only one catalytic converter. That's another cheap one. $134 on this website right here. That's another cheap one. And if a customer brought me these, I might entertain, you know, in an extreme situation like this where the lady's trying to be safe on the road. But I'm going to have, if it fails, I would have to turn around and charge labor and parts all over again. That's why it's not worth going with one of these cheap ones, because they are going to fail. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take. I want a good one. I don't want one of these cheap ones, and it's kind of like how I stand behind my name, like my brand and name. There's the one I want to get from MagnaFlow. You can see this online source has it for $11.29, but we have a small markup, which we have to mark it up a certain percent. Plus, if you get the one with the gaskets and everything in it, it may be a little bit more than that as well. In stock for $1,129. I would have to sell that at like $13.50 if I got it at that price. I'd have to at least make a couple $100 off. It's just business. That's how business works. Some people would try to get like 15, 16 out of that. But this is me being raw, and this is what it looks like when the inside of them melt. You see how that right there is all falling apart, and you can't, the honeycombs are all closed off. Air can't pass through there, and when air can't pass through there, that means the engine doesn't run. See if we can find another one. There's another one, melted catalytic converter failure right there. That's somebody that cut the metal open and took the insides out. Here's another one. That's how it's cracked down the center. And all this stuff out here looks like trash. That's what happens inside those catalytic converters when people start getting misfires and it starts running bad and they continue to drive it. And then here you can see that's a new catalytic converter going in on an X5. Yeah, so that's the, here's another one. Here's what another one looks like. See how that melted and all fell apart inside? You can't get air through that. That's a junk catalytic converter. Here's another one. Melted. So, 3 bad ignition coils, 3 bad spark plugs, mass airflow sensor, terrible on this thing. And after we replaced the mass airflow, it would start. Before we would replace the mass airflow, it wouldn't start. So something was wrong with the mass airflow, caused the engine to start running really bad. Once the engine started running bad, those front 3 spark plugs, for some reason, really fouled out and got nasty. And that catalytic converter failed as well. So now that there's new coils, new plugs, and new mass airflow, the vehicle starts and runs fine for like the first 5 minutes. And then once it hits like the 5, 6, 7 minute mark, it just falls on its face and dies. It doesn't want to breathe until you pull the oxygen sensor out, and then it can breathe. So that catalytic converter is junk. It's no good. That's the theory, conclusion, diagnosis, mass airflow, plugs, ignition coils, catalytic converter on that front bank. That's what it's going to take to make that thing run really good.